So, here we are again, Pete.
Okay, what have we got today?
Well, hang on, we got some absolutely beautiful wines, but Pete, we missed last week. Sorry about that. But
Well, you know how it is.
I should say sorry out there.
Yeah,
but
sorry
I
to the.
had to move.
You had to move house, and
Yes.
and I had to move my knee and find out which part of it had been torn away. So we didn't have a lot going for us last week. But
No.
I think we make up for it this week with
Absolutely.
what we've got to look for. So
Yeah, I'm really excited here. We've got 4 whites now. 3 of them are from Tabilk, and they're Tabilk's Marsanne. And then we've got a Chardonnay from Mornington Peninsula, and a couple of Aussie Reds.
Okay,
So
cool.
this is really exciting. Now, the first wine we're trying out here, Pete, this morning is the 2013 Tabilk Marsanne.
okay, so this is the current release Marsanne, obviously.
Yep. Tabilk's been around since the 1860s, I believe.
Yep, something along those
So
lines.
they've been around for a long time, and from my understanding, the Marsanne they have planted here in Australia is some of the most Marsanne in the world now.
Well, yeah, I think in fact at the moment they have the single biggest planting of Marsanne in the world. There's more Marsanne on their property than there is in any of the single vineyard areas in the Rhone Valley, which is where it comes from originally. Its natural home, so to speak, its old world home. And the other thing about Tabilk is that they've had Marsanne planted there since the 1920s. They've made Marsanne as a varietal wine since the 1930s. And I often say to people, they don't think about it because it's not necessarily fashionable, but these guys have been making Marsanne longer than Penfolds have been making Grange. So that says something about their persistence with the variety, and also their capacity to make exciting wine out of it.
It's a beautiful style of wine. There's big acid there.
Yep, there is. Yep.
And I guess that's what enables this wine to age so well. But
Yes, yep,
there's
yep.
some great fruit.
Yep.
I get this lemony sort of a character, a little bit of a grassy sort of a character. So
Very crisp, very zesty.
yes, and I think this is a great match with seafood and
Oh yeah.
and that sort of
Marsanne goes with almost anything in terms of lighter-bodied seafood, salads, things like that. Almost anything you would drink a crisp, dry white with, this will work.
Yep.
And then yeah, the wine. The really interesting thing is that it's got that great belt of acid that runs across the palate when it's young, and that keeps it fresh and enables it to age, which is, you know, a difference between, in terms of the Rhone varieties, you look at Marsanne and you look at Viognier. Viognier needs to be drunk young because it's rich and fat when it's young, and it doesn't have much acid to hold it in place for a long time. Marsanne is crisp and lean and zesty when it's young, but it's got such terrific structure and such beautiful acid that that's what keeps it fresh, and they age very well, which we're obviously going to see in a minute.
yes, this young one I could drink that on a hot summer afternoon all by itself. But it's a great food wine as well. And as you say, anything, for example, that you'd eat along with a Riesling, I think would go
Precisely,
very well
or
with
a
it.
young Semillon for that matter.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
It works very well.
Absolutely beautiful.
One of Australia's classic white wine styles, and particularly the young one, is really affordable. Like it's routinely available for under $15 almost anywhere. And on that basis, it's one of the best value for money wines that you can buy.
Absolutely. And a change from a Riesling or a Sauvignon Blanc, as far as I'm concerned. Now, now we're going to try the Marsanne 2008.
Okay.
This is also Tabilk. So this has got a little bit of age on it. And in comparison, look at the color, Pete.
Yeah, it's like a nice golden straw sort of colour.
Yeah.
So this one though, this 2008 Marsanne.
Wow.
This is just basically an older version of the other one, in the sense that the other one's the standard entry-level Marsanne, and this one is the same wine that someone just held onto for 4 or 5 years.
Well, the character that's developed in this wine, I just get this almost well, what I'd say is sort of like a Carasini sort of a character, like a Riesling, like an old Riesling.
Yeah, but not in an unpleasant sort of way.
No.
I mean, quite often wine buffs, you'll hear them talk about, oh, look, I got a bit of Kero on that, a bit of kerosene, and that immediately seems to conjure up, a bad scene, like pejorative sense of being not particularly attractive. But that's got some beautiful honeyed flavours as well.
Absolutely, those honeyed flavors seem to come out, and there's a bit more length in the palate than the young Marsanne. So if that's an indication what that wine ages into, that is beautiful.
And particularly, that's just your bog standard commercial wine.
And I would suggest that this is even more of a food wine than the young Marsanne.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Well, it goes with a wider variety of dishes. You can still have this with your fish and your seafood, but you could then move into chicken con carne, things like that, like a bigger, robust, I guess, white meat dishes. This will
Something
work.
with creamy sauces.
Absolutely, yeah. The interesting thing too, though, is you notice it's still got that fine line of acid running through the palate. So
Absolutely.
it's not going to go away anywhere. Like that, if you had that sitting around in a cellar at home, you could say, well, I could be drinking that for quite a while yet.
Great cellaring wine.
Absolutely.
Now, I'm excited about this. Now, I've never had this wine before, Pete. This is the 1927 vines.
Oh, right, yep.
These are the first vines, apparently, that they planted of the Marsanne grape.
Yep.
And it's a limited supply of this wine.
You don't often see this. This is pretty flash. It's a wine they've only started releasing it in relatively recent times. I think probably the last 10 years or so. I remember the first time this wine got released as a separate bottling, and it was essentially a tribute to the best and the oldest vines on the property, and they wanted to make it as a testament to how well their Marsanne could age. And
this is a 2004 vintage, and the first thing I noticed, it isn't as dark as the 2008.
No, it's a paler colour than the 08. So this is obviously, this is their best wines, and it's there. But you think of this as being a current release. This is on the market now, and it's essentially a 10-year-old wine.
Wow.
There's not much else out there that gets released as a current vintage release of that wine is a 10-year-old wine.
Wow, the nose is beautiful on that.
It is, yeah.
That's incredible.
There's lemon, there's sherbet, there's all sorts of crisp, zingy, zesty sort of characters. A little bit of straw underneath, which might initially head you towards Semillon as a variety, but just the freshness of that wine on the nose and on the palate is just extraordinary.
And that lemon and sherbet that really comes through on the palate as well.
The intensity is superb. And the really interesting thing with that, there are so few wines anywhere, white or red for that matter, that have the capacity to age as slowly and as surely as that does. Probably the only wine style, I tried this with a bunch of wine industry guys a couple of weeks ago, and the only comparison that any of them could come up with was maybe a Vouvray, a French Chenin Blanc from the Loire Valley.
Wow.
And some of those can age for 30, 40 years. Well, this will. Like, it's 10 years old now, and it looks like a 2-year-old. It's incredible.
Beautiful.
Like, really amazing wine.
What an experience that is.
Absolutely, yep.
Now, a little bit of an anticlimax here, Pete. We're going to go to the Mornington Peninsula with a Chardonnay. Now, we've tried this before, not too long ago, actually.
I'm sure the Chardonnay lovers would be happy to hear you talk about an anticlimax. But
This is a 2012 Mornington Peninsula Chardonnay.
Made by Estonia.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, the last time I tasted it, I thought it was a brilliant wine. It's a very tight, very closed yet, which I just think it needs a bit more time. Now, it'll be interesting to see.
It needs time to settle down in the bottle, really, as much as anything else. It's on the market, it's new, it's fresh, the oak is still there. Everything's there, I think, but it just needs a bit of time.
Yep, and it's very much this way I remember this 3-4 months ago. It's so far. Yeah, as you say, everything is there. I get the that white peach character, that mallow character.
Yeah, the creaminess from the malo.
Yeah, it's just sort of tucked away there. It's there, but it isn't revealing itself in a huge way. So I think it needs a little bit of time to settle down a little bit.
Yeah, probably. I think it's ironic in a lot of ways. A lot of the makers these days, those sorts of wines, the demand is out there. The public wants the wine, and the bean counters running the show are saying, "Hey, hang on, get it out there on the market." It would have been better for the Stoniers if they had been able to hold that back until probably April or May of next year, because by then it will have settled down a bit more in the bottle, and it will be starting to, show a little bit more integration. I mean, you get some really nice oak in that, and there is a Stonia character. The creaminess, if you like, is a bit of a Stonia trademark on their Chardonnay.
Yeah, and the great fruit coming through there.
Beautiful fruit. 12's obviously a good vintage, and they've done a good job with it.
Yeah,
but it just needs a bit of time to settle down, and we'll have to wait and see if it gets that opportunity, because maybe that's the whole thing. If it gets sold now, then they'll be shoveling the next one out.
For those that have the discipline to tuck it away in the cellar.
Yeah, people not like me.
It's going to reward them, I think.
That's
it's
true,
absolutely beautiful wine. So yeah, I've had many people tell me the same thing, Pete. That they can't tuck it far enough away in their cellar.
Yeah. You need to
get
have
it
other
out of
things
sight
to
and out of
distract
mind.
you. Yeah, you need to have other things to distract you so that you grab something else before you find this.
Now we've got the St. Hallett Barossa Faith
Oh, the
Shiraz. Now this is the
Okay.
2012. Wow, the first thing I noticed there is the big dark colors.
Yeah, talk about something being young.
Yeah.
Yeah, big bold fruit. 12 was apparently a pretty good year. We haven't seen too many of the heavy hitters on the market as yet, but certainly a lot more generous in terms of its fruit character and
Big jammy fruit. I get that on the nose straight away.
Yep, a lot more generous in character than the 11s. So I suspect that a lot of the the big makers and St. Hallett do make a fair bit of wine. They're not a big maker as such, but they make a lot of wine, and I suspect that these guys, along with a lot of other people, would have been pretty happy to see the back of 2011, and they'd be right pleased to see some of the 12s on the market. So
Yeah, that's some great big dark berry fruits, and I can just imagine when I get that in my mouth,
Yep.
all those different berries just crammed in my mouth.
Oh,
It's a big fruity wine.
Well, they do a really good job with this as well. They make a lot of it. The Faith is their sort of flag bearer, in a sense that it's the wine that you see around the traps all the time. And you think they make a lot of this, and it's beautifully.
That's sort of the
balanced.
middle of the road label, isn't it? That isn't their low end,
No.
the entry level, but it's not the top end of their
No,
label.
it's a
as
standard.
well.
It's a standard Shiraz though
Yep.
for the guys at St. Hallett, and it's a classic Barossa style, big bold fruit, understated oak. Obviously, as you go further up the totem pole, money wise, you're going to be spending more money on your oak, and therefore you can justify charging 40, 50, 70 bucks a bottle. And by the time you get to the top end, the old block Shiraz that you don't see very much of, then yeah, it's a different sort of wine. But the integrity of what they do is still there as far as Barossa Shiraz goes.
Yep. Now the next one, Pete, I'm really, really interested in this. I've seen this, and I have never had the opportunity to try it. This is the Belnaves.
Oh, yeah.
Belnaves Cabernet. Now this is the Coonawarra Cabernet 2010, so great vintage.
Yep. Okay. Straight away, we're thinking, right, we've got a gun maker. These guys are one of the, I wouldn't say an unsung star of the Coonawarra, but
Wow.
they don't get perhaps some of the publicity that one or two others get, but certainly in my estimation they're in the top 2 or 3 all the time as far as
Big fruit on that. Wow, that black currant just jumps out
Well,
of the nose. And the
it's-
other thing I get is that little bit of mintiness that kind of, to me, gives that Coonawarra location.
well it's Coonawarra mint.
Yeah,
as
if I was
before.
blind tasting this one,
Yep.
I would have said straight away, wow,
Yep.
that's a Coonawarra Cabernet.
And to be honest, I mean, that's one of the things that you want from a good wine in a good year and a good maker, is that you have that stamp all over it that says, okay, I know where this comes from. And that's a mark of success for these guys, for the character of the wine, the calibre of the vintage.
Wow, that fruit is absolutely brilliant. Nice and bright, big black currant fruit. Lovely oak, and just a really nice mix of tannin in that.
It's funny, the Belnaves wines, one of the characteristics that they've always had is really firm tannin, very, very nicely balanced and ripe tannin, but it's a characteristic of the Belnaves Cabernets that they've got a lot of tannin. And in other years I might have said almost sledgehammer tannin.
Yep.
But this has got a lot of tannin, but it's beautifully integrated and really supple. It's
And well balanced.
Oh yeah, I mean, and having said that, yeah, you just hit on the key to that. Balance is the key to this sort of wine. It's probably just about the most important word you can use to describe premium wine, is to talk about balance. You want all the components there, but you want them all in balance. And if you do have that, which you have here, you've got a wine that'll keep as long as you want to keep it. If somebody comes up to you and says, I want a Cabernet that's going to keep 20 years, well, there it is. And that's it.
Pete, I had somebody point out to me yesterday, one of the most important things in wine tasting, I mean, we baffle people with all these brilliant terms and words about wine tasting, but did you like it?
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. We've talked about that before, and I mentioned that to a few people, that my mentor, or the fellow who I learned most off, the old man of the Canberra district, Edgar Reek, one of the things that he said to me 20 odd years ago, I was getting all caught up when you're a younger fellow and you're trying to work out all the things that you're supposed to look for in a wine, and he just looked at me straight away one day and said, but hang on, do you like it? And you think, Yeah, that sort of pulls you back a step and makes you think, well, hang on, this is what wine's all about.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't like it, then it doesn't matter whether it's got this amount of oak in it or that sort of Malo character or any other sort of thing at
This
all.
berry or that berry. Or
Exactly right. You know, how long did it spend in this oak? What size was the oak barrel? You know, what vine did they come from? I mean, yeah, at the end of the day, if you don't like it, none of that matters.
Yeah. Brilliant wine, and
Absolutely.
I like it.
Yeah, no, and I do too.
Great.
Excellent. Very good. Thanks for that, mate.
Yeah, thanks, Pete, and we'll see you again next week.
You will indeed.
All righty.